guys, welcome back to the channel, and today, let's rank all 9 Roger Moore and Timothy Dalton Bond movies. Woohoo! Let's get started. Yeah, Man with the Golden Gun. Honestly, this is the only one I don't really like of all. This is one of my least favorite Bond movies. It's in the bottom 5, but I still have fun with this movie. It's okay at best. But like the problem with this movie is that Roger Moore's giving an off-key performance. It seems more like Connery than what he's known for when it comes to Bond, like what he has done in the later films. So it's really off-key to see him do these kind of things, like hitting women and leering at one and one's in a closet while he's shagging one in a bed. That's just weird. He just does a lot of weird things. But the negatives. But I try to get the negatives out of the way. But onto the positives. I really, really, really like Christopher Lee as Francisco Scaramanga. One of my favorite Bond villains in the top 10. I don't know if top 5, but he does a great job. Like the bottom 3 Roger Moore films, that includes Man with the Golden Gun, A View to a Kill, and Moonraker. I think Drax, Zorin, and Scaramanga are some of my favorite Bond villains. They're some of the best acted ones for sure, and I think they're better than all the top 4 Roger Moore Bond movie villains, which is kind of odd when you think about it. But I still have fun with Golden Gun. I think I also like Hervé Villechaize as Knick Knack, the midget. But honestly, my biggest problem, but like there's some scenes that just kind of make me uncomfortable. But then the action sequences aren't all that good. Like the gun shootouts are cool or in the base. The boat chase isn't really anything special. The car chase is actually not bad, well, except for the slide whistle. Yeah, that's just horrible for no reason. Why do they do that? Like it ruins an awesome stunt that is really well done. Then you have to put a freaking slide whistle there. But like honestly, I think because of some of those stupid decisions, and it just feels like, what are we doing here? That's my problems with this movie overall, and I can't say it's a good movie, but whenever I watch it, I have fun with it. It's not a bad movie at all. Yeah, I think not View, Moonraker is a fine film. It's actually pretty good, but like objectively, I see why people hate it. It's Bond in space and all of that stuff, but like I have a ton of fun with it. All of the space aspects are pretty good. Drax is an awesome villain, and the story beats. The plot doesn't really work. Okay, I'll get into the negatives a little. I'm just trying to get the positives out of the way. Opposite of Golden Gun, but whatever. I think honestly that I think Jaws is okay in the movie. I'll talk. And like the problem is that they make him too much like a joke. There's a scene where he literally breaks his steering wheel and then falls off. And then there's also a scene in the gondola where he's trying to telling the guy to speed it up, and then he bashes into a 7-Up building. That's just like, what the hell? And then the way he turned good. Really weirdly done, but it doesn't bother me that much. There's only one scene where he's actually creepy, and that's that scene when he's in the clown suits. But really, that's like the only scene he's even as creepy as he is in The Spy Who Loved Me. And he's making jokes in that movie. He dropped a rock on his foot. That's nowhere near as bad as breaking a steering wheel. Also, he broke his parachute in the beginning, and that led to and then he fell into a circus with some really weird music. I don't know, this movie makes a lot of weird decisions, not necessarily like Golden Gun, where they're just, where I'm just uncomfortable the whole time. They're different here. Like, you see that there's a scene with a double taking pigeon, like, what the hell? Then Jaws is falling in love in another scene. Then there's the boat chase, which is, actually, I think it's pretty good. Well, the one with the inflatables is not good, at least until the inflatable part. But then you have the one with Jaws. That one's pretty good, honestly. I think it's underrated. And then the space action sequence is really oddly shot. Like, it's just a weird sequence. I love the skydiving sequence. That is just incredible. And I heard it took like 500 takes, honestly. I heard about that. And also, I forgot to, and then the final thing I wanted to mention is Drax. And actually, I'll talk about Roger Moore first. Roger Moore here actually gives an awesome performance here. One of my, probably his second best, just behind The Spy Who Loved Me, because this is where I think he's at his most joyous to watch. This is where he's the most entertaining to watch of any of the movies. He's just so much fun to watch on this movie that I can get over some of the parts. And also, the scene with the inflatable, unlike the scene where the cars are emerging out of water, which is kind of a stupid scene, but it's played pretty cool, and they do it pretty nicely. And they don't do it, it only, like, takes up 20 seconds of screen time. This takes up, like, 2 minutes. And I just don't like that. It's 6 times more, I guess. I don't know. But honestly, I think some of those scenes are just terrible. And then the final thing is, yeah, Drax. Drax, I think, is such a good villain. Michael Lonsdale he's probably one of the few things that saves this movie from being a little lower than it is. Because he's not really menacing, but whenever he's with Bond, he just plays a calculating menace. And he just does a great job at that. Oh, and I think he's one of my favorite Bond villains. I also forgot to mention the Bond girl, Holly Goodhead. Not as good as Anya. I'll put that simply. But I think their chemistry is a little better than with Anya, but overall, I think she's a pretty good Bond girl, and I like how they show her skills off a little bit more, but I do think her name is just really bad, and yeah. I mean, View to Kill is just a ton of fun. Like, honestly, what the thing I really like about A View to Kill is that it's just a fun film. Like, I think if I didn't rewatch it before I reviewed it, I would have put it below Moonraker. But since I did rewatch it, I was like, I need to bump this ahead of Moonraker. I could potentially bump this ahead of the next two. I didn't, because I think I like the next two just a little bit more than A View to a Kill. But A View to a Kill is just such a fun film. Christopher Walken is such a good villain. I also don't mind Roger Moore. A bit too old, yes, but I still enjoy him. And also, I think our MI6 regulars are pretty good in this movie. This might be Frederick Gray at his best, in my opinion. Q is back. Yeah, I don't love Robert Brown's but he's fine in this movie, but whatever. Stacey Sun's an odd Bond girl. I mentioned this in my review, but, like, she's just really weird. Like, I don't hate Tanya Roberts and I think she's just fine, but she just is kind of weird. And then I feel like the problem with Roger Moore is that in scenes, especially near the end, it doesn't feel like he really cares all that much. He's kind of, like, acting like Connery was in The Only Twice, because I heard that he didn't want to have Bond go down the more violent route, and that's what this movie took, really. It's one of the most violent Bond movies, honestly. There's a scene where Christopher Walken mows down a bunch of people in a fall. That's like a violent moment that he's blasting machine gun. And then there's just some kind of violent moments. I really like this movie. I have a ton of fun with it. I mean, it's pretty cheesy, and most of the action sequences aren't very good. The ski sequence is actually pretty good until Beach Boys music happened. I mentioned that in my review. I also don't mind the sequence with the fire truck chase out. That's actually really good too. I also like I don't really like it that much. I like the part in the San Andreas Fault. Not as much when we get to the Golden Gate Bridge. I thought that sequence is very stupid and very overrated. And then I think a couple of the sequences where Bond's just sneaking around. I find the house fight kind of funny. It's pretty cool. The old festives Roger Moore and there's an obvious stuntman. Like, you can, more than any other Bond movie, you can just tell when there's a stunt double. And that's just kind of a problem. And it has some of the 80s cheese factor, like most of the Bond movies around the time. And that's also kind of a problem. But Walken and Jones are just great. Well, I think Walken, he plays a very campy villain and and he is insane. I mentioned this in my review, but he's absolutely insane. Like, if you thought Silva's insane, Zoran's on the next level. And also Grace Jones, very muscular henchman. I feel like she's kind of more like a prototype for what Xenia Onatopp was here to come. I thought she was a little better, but still, I think Grace Jones does a great job. And also, most of the other side cast, you got Dolph Lundgren in there for like a couple seconds. Yeah, I think I already mentioned Christopher Walken and Grace Jones, so yeah. I really do like For Your Eyes Only. I think, honestly, this is actually a pretty awesome Bond movie. I think I really like it. But overall, I think there are some like I don't think the villain's all that good. Like Chris Dados is not a very good villain, but I really do. I think the henchmen are all right, but overall, I think the villains in this movie are not very good. But the action sequences are great. The stunt work is great. I love the ski chase. I love the car chase. The climbing sequence is really cool. I think the problem with this movie is that on rewatch, I think this movie kind of goes down and down because I don't enjoy it as much as I do the first few times because this movie's pretty predictable and all the stuff with Roger Moore. But a lot of the stuff I really like is that watching this after Moonraker makes it a lot better because it's a breath of fresh air. It's way more grounded than Moonraker, which was Bond in space, literally. And it's really nice to get to this movie. But overall, I do think it does have some of the 80s cheese factor that most of the other John Glenn Bond movies did. Like I think Four Yards Only, Octopus, Vito Kill, and The Living Daylights had kind of that cheese factor. And this is my mom's favorite Bond movie. Great for her. And I have fun with this. I have fun with this movie sometimes. I think Roger Moore gives a great performance. The action sequences are great. But the underwater sequence slow things down. They're better than Thunderballs, but still not great. And then the villain's plan is really confusing, and then the MacGuffin storyline never really worked for me. So a lot of the stuff's revolving around the plot, which is just pretty generic. But this is a movie that just the action sequences are what put it better. And you also get a classic Roger Moore moment. Yeah, Blofeld. And then the final thing with this movie is that I think the Melina Havelock is a great Bond girl, and then because she just kind of wants revenge and all of that stuff. And I like how Roger Moore is kind of being a father figure. I think the nice thing about this and A View to a Kill is that at points, Bond's being a father figure to both Stacy and Melina. Although it's completely undone by the end of both movies, where they're kissing in either a shower or on a boat. Yeah, that was a weird scene. I don't like that scene. It's really odd. But I also really like also the best thing about this movie is just Roger Moore. He gives one of his better performances because it's a bit more serious. He's my favorite moment where he just kicks the car off the cliff. That is just awesome. And then also what I like about him in this movie is that he's a bit more serious in a lot of the scenes where he's supposed to get emotion. Like talk about the scene where he's looking at Tracy's grave, or when Pierce Brosnan's. This is his wife. Fun fact. This is his wife. Like I think his ex-wife now. I don't think they're still married, but this is the person that is run over. I forgot her name. Cordy. It starts with this. Lisa. There we go. Lisa. When she dies, I feel like Roger Moore. This is the only time I feel like whenever someone dies that I feel like Roger Moore kind of you see that emotion, and I think this is where he shows. I think I think honestly, The Spy Who Loved Me, 4 Years Only, and Octopus here, kind of where you see his dramatic skills the best. And this movie does that really well, and I think it is a great Bond movie, but not as rewatchable as some of the others. I think The Living Daylights and For Your Eyes Only are pretty much tied. I give The Living Daylights the edge because it's a bit more creative. And honestly, more than any other Bond movie, if this wasn't in the series, I mentioned this in I think it was License to Kill review or Living Daylights, probably both, that, also you're going to go check both of those videos out right here. Is that if this wasn't in the Bond series, it would be remembered as one of the last great Cold War movies, because it kind of is a great Cold War movie. As a Bond movie, I think 4 Hours Only actually is a better Bond movie. So is most of the movies on this list. Better Bond movie than The Living Daylights. But I think John Glenn directs this movie pretty well. I think it's the best made of all of his movies, in my opinion. Well, at least filming wise, because License to Kill just looks so cheap. I talked about that in my review, but overall, I really like The Living Daylights. The villain. Okay, I don't really like the villains here. They're not very good. Koskov and Whitaker. Also, although I do like Necros as the henchman. I do like him. I think he is one of my favorite henchmen. Henchmen maybe from the 80s, not in general, but he's a good henchman. Dalton is pretty awesome, much more physical than Moore was. Still kind of leaves that comedy-esque a little bit, and then I think that kind of drives the movie down in his performance down because he can't really act those kind of parts well. License to Kill, I think they made the best with him, which I'll talk about that when I get to that. Let's get to License to Kill. But honestly, I don't really have any problems with the Living Daylights, but like, and the Cold War stuff is really good. But the biggest draw that brings this movie down, besides the villains, Cara Malovi. One of my least favorite Bond girls. Probably my least favorite. And I think the way they use her, she is so incompetent. And then even more so than someone like Goodnight or Stacy. Like I mean, she's incompetent. At least they're not stubborn. At least Goodnight's not. But it's just weird. Like I just really don't like. I don't like the Bond girl at first. Until I like her up until after the I think she's not bad until the scene where they get locked in prison. After that scene, I really don't like her. I find her very unlikable. She's not fun to watch. But like I think in the trailers they make her to be a really good Bond girl, but in the movie I don't really like her. But I will say she has good chemistry with Dalton. But other than that, there's not really any redeeming qualities about her. But the action sequences here are great. The plane fight is just great. I also love the car chase earlier in the movie. The beginning opening is one. It's just one of my favorite pre-title sequences. I also love the introduction of Dalton where he turns his face. It's just so well done. And there's a lot of aspects of this movie that are just awesome. I just don't think it's as good as some of the others. I'll just put that plain and simple. Because I think that's what I think. Yeah, I think Octopussy, yeah, no joke, put it this high. Sue me. I really like Octopussy, and there's a decent gap between Living Daylights and Octopussy, but like I have so much fun when I watch this movie. Like it's probably the most rewatchable movie on the list. It's not the one I've seen the most, but it's the most rewatchable because it's one of the last. It was the latest of all. Yeah, it was the latest of all of these I've seen. But overall, Octopussy is just such a fun movie. Like the villains here don't. I like Orlov more than Kamal. But I think the screen presences work. I don't love. I don't remember his name. I think Gabinda, something like that. His henchman. I'm gonna call him Gabinda because I think that's his name. But overall, I think he is a great villain and he has a great henchman. Although he's too much like an odd ripoff. Moore is just a joy to watch in this movie. I think this is kind of more than any of his performances, other than maybe Live and Let Die. This is the best mix of his dramatic stuff and his campy stuff, and over the top in general. But and I think he's just a joy to watch. There's some kind of violent moments in the middle. Unlike a Veto Kill, they don't really work as well in Octopussy. And honestly, in a lot of ways, I do think a Veto Kill is actually a better made movie. But in a lot of ways, that's just a ripoff of Goldfinger, which is just awesome. So like Goldfinger's awesome, Veto Kill's just pretty good. But I think Octopussy is just a fun movie. Pretty generic, but it's just fun. The action sequences, when you talk about great action sequences, Octopussy delivers. You have the train sequence is just awesome. The plane sequence at the beginning also just plain awesome. I also really love the jungle sequence, even though like there's some like parts where like he's just exhausted and kind of bleeding, like when you see the leech, that the blood sucking leeches, he's literally like bleeding. It makes things pretty much more realistic. Like at the end of that scene, he looks exhausted, like seriously. Although there is a quip that doesn't bother me, but still. But honestly, I mean, Octopus is a fun film. And oh, I didn't even mention the car chase. That was fun too. Who doesn't love that? Okay, actually, I did like that sequence. I love how we kind of get an Indian culture. I don't know. I think the more and more I watch this movie, I think the less and less I like India as a setting. But I still think it's really cool to visit India in a Bond movie. We never really done that before, and honestly, I think it's nice. I guess. And also, I like the Cold War aspects to this movie. Better done in Living Daylights, in my opinion, but still well done here. And the villains are better here. But one thing I'm also didn't mention yet is the Bond girl. Octopussy, maybe my favorite of the Roger Moore Bond girls. Just yeah, probably of all of these, my favorite. I think the thing I like about her is this: she's just so well done. At first, I didn't really like her, but then when I keep rewatching this movie. Like, I think this movie's known for Bond dressing up in a clown and with Tarzan, which I will admit that is pretty stupid, but I kind of find it fun. Sorry. But I do think the way they use the Bond girl here, pretty well done. I like her backstory, kind of more like dramatic elements. Like, I think with the exception well, except for Vito Kill. Well, actually, kind of. Like all of his Bond movies kind of have like a dramatic element. For Your Eyes Only, really, it's most of the movie, and I think most people can see that. Um, let's see. Octopussy, it's with Octopussy's backstory. Vito Kill, pretty much the same thing, but Stacy, a little more, not really as well done. Actually, not really well done at all, but yeah. And then more emotional storylines. But it's not really emotional. But and then Living Daylights, it involves what Bond's actions and what he could do, which is one thing that's really well done about the movie. And then License to Kill, it's kind of obvious. I'm not going to say it because it is obvious, but and I'll just wait until I get to that movie. But Octopussy, I've been going on for too long. It's a very fun Bond movie. Next up, yep, I really like License to Kill, and which is at number three. License to Kill, talk about just an awesome movie. I think I put my number two just a little bit ahead. My number three and two are tied. I put two ahead just because it's more like a Bond movie compared to this one. I think that's my issue with it. It's too much like an '80s action movie. But I reviewed it. I'm gonna stay pretty short, I guess, because I rewatched this movie. Well, I didn't rewatch this movie. I reviewed it recently, so I'll keep my thoughts pretty small, I guess. And honestly, I just love the score. Michael Caine's score is just awesome. I didn't even mention the score for Vito Kill and Living Daylights. Both of those are awesome. I did mention both of those in the reviews, I think, but all the stuff I'm not mentioning, you can go check out the reviews. The movie review playlist for Bond is right here. But overall, I really love License to Kill. Sanchez is a pretty awesome villain. David Hedison is my favorite of the Felix Leiters of the seven, I think. He is by far the best one because he has a huge role in Live and Let Die and this. I think he's better in this one, in my opinion. Although he looks way older, I'm just gonna say that. And like but the best thing about it is the way the story is driven. In that, you see one of Bond's best friends' wife is murdered, and then now he wants revenge. That is just a great storyline and great way to explore all that. And it's more of a revenge is action movie than a Bond movie, which is an issue. And some of the violence it gets a little bit too much, especially near in the middle of the movie, like when Crest blows up. It's actually I think the scene's cool, but it's a bit too much for a Bond movie. But in some ways the violence kind of adds to it because it makes for some awesome action sequences, like the barefoot ski and the in the tanker chase, but also this movie's light on action. There's not a lot of action in this movie, really. There's only I can only name like 5 action sequences. I've done many takes on this in my review. Not gonna replay that because that did not go well. Anyway, I think not villain, Bond girl here. I think, I don't really like Loopy. I find her kind of annoying. At least I like her at first, but in the middle, I guess she gets kind of annoying. But I really like, Pam Bouvier. I think she's a pretty awesome Bond girl. Didn't love it when she cut her hair. I didn't like that all that much, but still, I think she makes for a nice, kind of Bond equal at times. Although my only issue is that unlike someone like Anya, Goodhead, Wayland, is that you can't really tell whether she's trying to be more of like a dazzling distress. She's not that much. Like, there's a couple of scenes where it feels like that, but it's either between like whether she's kind of like a person that Bond just kind of brings up and then decides to shag, like most other women around the '80s in his movies, or whether he wants to, whether she's more of a Bond equal. That's what I was trying to get at. But overall, I think she's pretty good, but just that those inconsistencies don't really work for me. But Sanchez is just a great villain. He's in 2 great movies in 2 years. Well, first it was Die Hard, and now this. Woohoo! And then, honestly, the henchman, nothing to shout at. I like Dario, played by a young Benicio del Toro. Didn't even mention that. And Gladys Knight's song is pretty good. The score by Michael Caine is awesome. But overall, License to Kill is a great movie. Number two is our runner-up is Live and Let Die. Live and Let Die. Talk about a fun film. Like, I think this one's more rewatchable than my number one, but Live and Let Die, what I love about it, Kananga's a great villain, and I think he's the best of the non-bottom three Roger Moore movies. The score, I think, is very underrated. I think maybe once we get to the second half, it's a little odd, but in the first half, it's great. And this might be the most '70s Bond movie and the most television looking before. It's the most television looking Bond movie since before Thunderball. But I mean, that doesn't take away too much from it, but like, I think it's just so 70s. The action's great. It's like, I feel like it's like kind of what you think about Golden Gun in a lot of ways. I think I kind of compare Golden Gun and Live and Let Die a lot because they're kind of similar. They're both more TV looking. Some of the action sequences are similar. Live and Let Die does almost all of them better, except for maybe the finale, but. Other than that, really like love Live and Let Die. Solitaire is a very unique Bond girl. Roger Moore's giving a great performance. Not one of my favorites, but he still does a great job. This is still when he had the snarkiness a bit. Like but I think Golden Gun took that too far. This movie paired it really nicely with the campy elements of his portrayal as Bond, and he just looks like he's having a great time in this movie, and it looks like everyone's having a great time. Unlike in Diamonds Are Forever, it just looks like everyone's just pissed off the whole time. And then you also have Teehee, who's a pretty good henchman. I also really like. I don't love Mr. Bix, and that twist reveal was really odd to me. And then I hate, hate Rosie Carver. I absolutely hate her. I think she's absolutely horrible. But really, other than that, I really like this movie. I think it's a ton of fun, and I love this movie. This is my mom's second favorite Bond movie. Yeah, three is Casino Royale. But overall, I think honestly, this movie is just a ton of fun, and the action sequences are great. Love the boat chase. Love the crocodile scene. That is an awesome stunt, by the way. And then, I also really like Kananga, Teehee, some of the other henchmen. The '70s aspect, it's a little odd at times, but unlike a movie like Diamonds Are Forever and The Man with the Golden Gun, it's not cheesy. Like, I think except for Spy Who Loved Me and Live and Let Die, the rest of the '70s and '80s movies are kind of cheesy in a lot of ways. I think that's the problem with the '70s and '80s Bond movies, but overall, I think this movie's a ton of fun. And I think the gadget is pretty cool with the wrist, with the watch. I think that's one of my cool Bond gadgets. I just don't like how it's used when he's breaking out of the thing he's captured in. I don't love that, but because it doesn't feel like it's teased, which is a little odd. I don't like that Q's not in this movie, but overall, I really like Live and Let Die. It's just a ton of fun. And my number two on this list. Coming in number one, I think maybe 50% of the people that are fans of Bond would agree with me, and then that's The Spy Who Loved Me. The Spy Who Loved Me is just a great movie. Just everything. I think that more than any other Bond movie, this is, to me, other than maybe Goldfinger, this is the quintessential Bond. I think every decade has their quintessential Bond movie. I think the '60s is Goldfinger, the '70s it's The Spy Who Loved Me, the '80s it's maybe 4 Eyes. It's maybe For Your Eyes Only or Octopussy. I'm gonna say For Your Eyes Only because it's more like than Octopussy. And then the '90s is GoldenEye for sure. The 2000s it's Casino Royale, and then the 2010s that's actually tricky. Well, 2010s and '20s I'll put those together, and then No Time to Die would obviously be the one in the '20s, and I cannot wait for it to come out. Jesus Christ, just release the damn movie. But I love this movie. Anya's a great Bond girl. Roger Moore probably is giving his best performance in this movie. The score, I think, it's okay at best, but it's a little odd. It's like a better version of Doctor No score, in my opinion. And there's just scenes that give me the creeps, like the scene where they're looking for Jaws and the music plays. And then once he disappears, and then there's the scene where he's just walking on a plank. It just gives me the creeps, honestly. Like, seriously. Honestly, it would have been even more creepy if he turned and you saw him looking at our two-man leads. That would have been even creepier. Like, Jesus. And this is the creepiest Bond movie of all of them. I think you know I Jaws. The action sequences are incredible. The car chase is one of my favorite car chases of all time. the the shootout in the La Paz boat, probably the best big battle, other than maybe the volcano layer battle, and You Only Live Twice. Anya, great ball girl. I wish they showed her skills off, and she does kind of appear to be a dazzling distress near the end, but still, and I can't get it. It's a little odd, but I can get over it. And also the ski chase, the final action sequence I want to mention, just an awesome sequence. And I think the ski jump is probably the best Bond stunt ever. I think that's for sure. Either that or the casino, or well, as stunt wise as a stunt, I'd say the ski jump is the most dangerous. And I can't say that in the Casino Royale stunt, because I'm gonna call it this Casino Royale stunt free run chase. I'll call it that. The free run in Casino Royale. Honestly, I think that chase also has one of my favorite stunts with him jumping off an 18-foot crane, 18-foot high crane, but yeah. Honestly, I think this movie has a lot of stuff I just love, and to be honest, it's just so fun, so enjoyable. But the only thing that keeps it from being in the top 5 Bond movies of all time is just Stromberg. I don't think he's a very good villain. But overall, I think also the fight scene with Sean Dore in Egypt is pretty cool. Egypt is a cool setting overall, in my opinion. But, I mean, I just think the villain's not very good. Their final showdown's really odd. But Jaws is it's one of my favorite henchmen, at least in this movie. Probably my third favorite because Moonraker ruined him, kind of. Because he's just a joke in that movie. But this movie is actually creepy. And I think this movie is definitely the quintessential Roger Moore Bond movie. And then, yeah, I think it is the quintessential one. Not the and I think that's the second. If Goldfinger didn't exist, then this would be the quintessential Bond movie. Because I think this is one that I feel like you can just look at the elements to it. Look at the elements, and then it feels like a quintessential Bond movie. It's one of them. If I had to pick 5 that I recommend you see, I'd say Goldfinger, Spy Who Loved Me, GoldenEye, Casino Royale, and Skyfall. Those are 5 I'd recommend you watch But I mean, I would take Skyfall out there if you're not a fan of Bond. If you are, watch Skyfall for sure, or you can just watch Die Another Day and see how the 40th anniversary ends 10 years ago. Yeah, it was not good. Not good. But that concludes my thoughts on The Spy Who Loved Me. And this is just an awesome film. So thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and comment down below. And I see you guys all next time. Adios.